center, making you move to the track, you surrender. Body scrunching your face closed up, cause the bass goes through as we enter. Body scrunching your face closed up, cause the bass goes. Shaking the room from the back to the center, making you move to the track, you surrender. Shaking the room from the back to the center. Body scrunching your face closed up, cause the bass goes. Shaking the room from the back to the center, making you move to the track, you surrender. Shaking the room from the back to the center. Body scrunching your face closed up, cause the bass goes as we enter. Shaking the room from the back to the center, making you move to the track, you surrender. Body scrunching your face closed up, cause the bass goes as we enter. Shaking the room from the back to the center, making you move to the track, you surrender. Body scrunching your face closed up, cause the bass goes. Scrunching your face closed up, cause the bass goes. Scrunching your face closed up, cause the bass goes. As we enter, shaking the room from the back to the center, making you move to the track, you surrender. Body scrunching your face closed up, cause the bass goes. As we enter, shaking the room from the back to the center, making you move to the track, you surrender. Body scrunching your face closed up, cause the bass goes. Mortals have awakened the gods of old. We rise from our slumber to reveal our true power. Focus fire. To strike.
Let's go, buddy. It's fucking time for more samurai shit on this episode of Battle Tactics and War Strategies. I think the mic is working. I think everything's in order. So if you give me just a second to pull everything up, then we'll be good to go. Good to go, buddy. Alright, let's see here. Where are we at? We are on invasion number 2 of the Mongols on Japan. Yes, indeed we are. So, let's just jump right into it without further ado, because I'm like 15 fucking minutes later than I was supposed to be. Anyways, that being said, after the invasion of 1274, the shogunate made efforts to defend against a second invasion, which they thought was sure to come. They better organized the samurai of Kyushu and ordered a construction of forts and a large stone wall and other defensive structures at many potential landing points, including Hakata Bay, where a 2 meter, 6'6" high wall was constructed in 1276. In addition, a large number of stakes were driven into the mouth of the river and the expected landing sites to prevent the Mongol army from being able to land effectively. Kublai Khan sent 5 envoys of Yuan emissaries in September 1275 to Kyushu, who refused to leave without a reply. Tokimune responded by having them sent to Kamakura and then beheading them. The graves of those 5 executed Yuan emissaries still exist at Joryuji and Fujisawa, Kanagawa, near the Tatsunokuchi execution place in Kamakura. 5 more Yuan emissaries were sent on the 29th of July, 1279 in the same manner, and were again beheaded, this time in Hakata. In the autumn of 1280, Kublai Khan held a conference at his summer palace to discuss plans for a second invasion of Japan. The major difference between the first and second invasion was that the Yuan dynasty had finished conquering the Song dynasty in 1279 and was able to launch a 2-pronged attack. The invading force was drawn from several sources, including criminals with commuted death sentences and even those mourning the loss of their parents, a serious affair in China. More than 1,500 ships were requisitioned for the invasion, 600 from southern China and 900 from Korea. Reportedly, 40,000 troops were amassed in Korea and 100,000 in southern China. Those numbers are likely an exaggeration, but the addition of the southern Chinese resources probably meant the second invasion force was still several times larger than the first invasion of Japan. Nothing is known about the size of the Japanese forces. At least nothing accurate. There's a bunch of estimates ranging from 20,000 all the way up to 100,000, depending on what you include. If you're including farmers and peasants that took up arms to help the samurai, if you're talking about women and children that took up arms to help the samurai, if you're talking about old people that ended up taking up arms to help the samurai, like, there's a lot of instances where people in the commonplace that were not military or militarily trained would do like guerrilla tactics and or scorched earth. They'd burn their villages and then kind of hide out, wait for the Mongols to show up into the burnt village, surround the village, and then attack them. Yeah, man. Fucking Japanese farmers were the shit. Holy fuck. Orders for the second invasion came in the first lunar month of 1281. 2 fleets were were prepared. A force of 900 ships in Korea and 3,500 ships in southern China with a combined force of 142,000 soldiers and sailors. The Mongol general Arakan was named supreme commander of the operation and was to travel to with the Southern Route Fleet, which was under the command of Fan Wenhu, but was still delayed by supply difficulties. The Eastern Route Army was set sail first from Korea on the 22nd of May and attacked Tsushima on the 9th of June and Iki Island on the 14th of June. According to the history of Yuan, the Japanese commander Shoni Sukitoki and Ryuzoji Suitoki led forces against the invasion force. The expeditionary forces discharged their firearms and the Japanese were routed, with Sukitoki killed in the process. More than 300 islanders were killed, fighting back against the Mongols. The Yuan soldiers sought out the children and killed them as well. However, the history of Yuan merges events in June with the later battle in July, when Shoni Sukitoki actually fell in battle. Now, again, the reason they sought out the children was because children were taking up their dad's swords and shit and trying to fight back. It was like wild. All hands on deck defending the country kind of thing. This is part of the reason the Mongolians struggled with Japan. It's because Japan was very how you think America would be, right? Back in the shogunate era. The Eastern Route Army was supposed to wait for the Southern Route Army at Iki, but their commanders, Hong Dagu and Kim Beng-gyong, disobeyed orders and set out to invade mainland Japan by themselves. They departed on the 23rd of June, a full week ahead of expected arrival of the Southern Route Army on the 2nd of July. The Eastern Route Army split their forces in half and simultaneously attacked Hakata Bay and Nagato Province. 300 ships attacked Nagato on the 25th of June, but were driven off and forced to return to Iki because you don't attack mainland Japan without reaping the fucking consequences. Meanwhile, the rest of the Eastern Route Army attacked Hakata Bay, which was heavily fortified with defense wall. Some Mongol ships came ashore but were unable to make it past the defense wall and were driven off by volleys of arrows and fire arrows. Let's go for fire arrows. What a wonderful piece of technology. Unable to land, the Mongol invasion force occupied the islands of Shika and Noko, from which it had planned to launch raids against Hakata. Instead, the Japanese launched raids at night on board small ships, basically fishing boats. The Hachimen Godokun credit Kusano Jiro with boarding a Mongol ship, setting fire to it, and taking 21 heads back with him on his farmer boat. He didn't just chop the heads off, he took the heads with him like a legend. The next day, Kawano Michiari led a daytime raid with just 2 boats. His uncle, Michitoki, was immediately killed by an arrow. And that's all allegedly, by the way. These are all just documented shit from historians. Nobody was really there. You don't know if he actually just, bagged up all the fucking heads or just carried them all by their hair. How do you even... 21 heads? That's a lot of heads. But, nonetheless, still a legend. Not discounting his efforts to save his country. Good man. His uncle Michitoki immediately killed by an arrow, and Michiari was wounded both in the shoulder and left arm. However, upon boarding the enemy ship, he slew a large Mongol warrior, for which he was made a hero and richly rewarded. Takazaki Suenaga was also among those who raided the Yuan fleet. Takazaki also participated in driving the Mongols from Shika Island, although, in that instance, he was wounded and forced them to withdraw to Iki on the 30th of June. Japanese defense at Hakata Bay is known as the Battle of Koan. On the 16th of July, fighting commenced between the Japanese and the Mongols at Iki Island, resulting in a Mongol withdrawal to Hirado Island. Yep, keep pushing them back. Because it wasn't only Tsushima at this point. Now they had reinforcements from the mainland. The shogunate was like, yeah, they tried to land here on the mainland. Nah, buddy. Nah. And you ain't taking our island either. That's just not happening. The Battle of Kone, also known as the Second Battle of Hakata Bay, was the second attempt by the Mongol-led Yuan dynasty of China to invade Japan after their failed attempt 7 years earlier at the Battle of Bunei. In the summer of 1281, the Yuan invaded with two large armies. The Japanese defenders, aided by a major storm which sank a sizable portion of Yuan fleets. The invaders who reached the shore were repulsed shortly after landing. The Japanese called the opportune storm the Kamikaze. Round 2. Not really, they didn't call it round 2, they just called it a kamikaze. But like the first invasion, the Mongols were thwarted again and again by kamikazes, dude. By the divine wind, or typhoons. Right? Just wild shit. Like, man. Somebody in Japan was like full wizard status, and they were just like, yeah, weather manipulation. Stop the Mongol invaders. Fucking wild shit. Stalemate at Hakata. After the Southern Route Fleet convened with the Eastern Route Fleet, the two fleets took some time rearranging themselves before they advanced on Taka Island. After taking Taka Island, the Yuan army advanced on Hakata. A 2-week battle ensued throughout the countryside that entered a stalemate. On the 12th of August, the Japanese repeated their small raids on the invasion fleet that lasted throughout the night. The Mongols responded by fastening their ships together with chains and planks to provide defensive platforms. There are no accounts of the raids from the Japanese side in this incident, unlike the defense of Hakata Bay. According to the history of Yuan, the Japanese ships were small and were all beaten off. Pretty fucking disgusting. What's with all the beating off of people in wartime? I'm just kidding. Japanese warcraft, being small in size, were no match. Those which came up to attack were all beaten. The whole country, therefore, was trembling with fear. In the markets, there was no rice for sale. The Japanese ruler went in person to visit the Hachiman shrine to make supplication. He also had a royal rescript read the shrine of the sun goddess, imploring that the country be saved in exchange for his own life. And the biggest of the kamikazes yet. On the 15th of August, the Great Typhoon, known in Japanese as kamikaze, struck the fleet at anchor from the west and devastated it, leaving very little, next to nothing, behind. Sensing the oncoming typhoon, Korean and South Chinese mariners retreated and unsuccessfully docked in Imari Bay, where they were destroyed completely by the storm. Thousands of soldiers were left drifting on pieces of wood or washed ashore, like in the Titanic. The Japanese defenders killed all they found except for the southern Chinese, who they felt had been coerced into joining the attack on Japan, as they felt bad that they had been conquered by the Mongols. Dang. Fucking some honor. Showing some honor. Kinda. Just a little bit. They're like, man, look, they tried to do the same thing to us and we said no. Sorry, you guys said yes, and now you can't do anything about it. We can. Marco Polo writes, now it happened one day that such a gale was blowing from the north that the troops declared that if they did not get away, all their ships would be wrecked. So they all embarked and left the island and put out to sea. And let me tell you that when they had sailed about 4 miles, the gale begun to freshen, and there was such a crowd of ships that many of them were smashed by colliding with one another or toppled over in the waves. Let's go. According to a Chinese survivor, after the typhoon, Commander Fan Wenhu picked the best remaining ships and sailed away, leaving more than 100,000 troops to die. After being stranded for 3 days on Tak Island, the Japanese attacked and captured tens of thousands. They were moved to Hakata, where the Japanese killed all Mongols, Koreans, and Northern Chinese. The Southern Chinese were spared but made slaves. According to a Korean source, of the 26,989 Koreans who set out with the Eastern Route Fleet, 7,592 of them did not return. Chinese and Mongol sources indicate a casualty rate of 60 to 90%. Yeah, during round 2, Japan was like, okay, you caught us off guard the first time, but second time is no mercy. No mercy. Y'all done fucked up now. You came to the wrong door. Holy shit. You done came to the wrong door. Like, let me put it this way. The Mongols pretty much conquered everything on the mainland, right? Like, fuck, they made it all the way past the Middle East to Europe. They got some of North Africa, they got some of, East Africa. They got pretty much all of Asia. One little tiny island just east of Korea was like, nah, fuck that, nah. I mean, granted, it was the weather and the island, but still, it's kind of funny when you think about it, that, like, out of all of the places that they conquered, they couldn't handle Japan. It's okay, though. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. They'll get over it, I'm sure. Many modern historians believe the figures for the invasion force to be exaggerated, as commonplace in post-classical chronicles. Thomas Conlan from Princeton University writes that they were likely exaggerated by an order of magnitude of 140,000, implying that it was 14,000 soldiers and sailors instead, and expresses skepticism in that the medieval-era kingdom could have managed an invasion on the scale of D-Day during World War II. Across over 10 times the distance, and questions if even 10,000 soldiers attacked Japan in 1281. Morris Rosabi writes that Conlan is correct in his assertion that the invasion force was much smaller than traditionally believed, but argues that the expenditures lavished on the mission confirmed the fighting force was sizable and much larger than 10,000 soldiers and 4,000 sailors. He puts forward the alternative figure of 70,000 soldiers and sailors, half of what is stated of the Yuan Shi and later Japanese claims. And finally, Turnbull believes that more than 140,000 is an exaggeration, but does not offer his own estimate for the size of the army. Rather, he states that given the contributions of the Southern Song, the second invasion should have been around 3 times larger than the first, as he earlier listed a common figure of 23,000 for the first invasion uncritically, unlike the estimate of more than 140,000 for the second, which would imply an invasion force of around 70,000 on par with Rosabi's estimate. Nailed it. The defeated Mongol Empire lost of its naval power and its naval defense capability. Declined significantly. Korea, which was in charge of shipbuilding for the invasion, also lost its ability to build ships and its ability to defend the sea since a large amount of lumber was cut down. On the other hand, in Japan there was no newly acquired land because it was a defensive war, and so the Kamakura shogunate could not give rewards to Gokenin who participated in the battle, and its authority declined. Later, taking advantage of the situation, the number of Japanese joining the Wokuo began to increase, and attacks on the coast of China and Korea intensified. As a result of the war, there was a growing recognition in China that the Japanese were brave and violent, and the invasion of Japan was futile. During the Ming Dynasty, invasion into Japan was discussed 3 times, but it was never carried out, considering the result of this war. Yep. Japan basically solidified themselves on the map because of this. They were like, look, don't fuck with us. But it also gave them an extreme amount of overconfidence, as we'll get to when we get to the World War II Pacific Theater. Like, from this point on, Japan starts to get, like, big ball syndrome. And it's kind of funny. Some of the cultural influence significance, the Zen Buddhism of Hojo Tokimune and his Zen master Buko gained the credibility beyond national boundaries, and the first mass following of Zen teachings among samurai began to flourish. The failed invasions also marked the first use of the word kamikaze. The fact typhoon that helped Japan defeat the Mongol navy in the first invasion occurred late in November, well after the normal Pacific typhoon season, May to October, perpetuated Japanese beliefs that they would never be defeated or successfully invaded. Having a few more smaller typhoons, and then the typhoon that ravaged the Mongol fleet in the second invasion further reinforced their confidence. That they would never be defeated or successfully invaded, right? Which remained an important aspect of Japanese foreign policy until the end of World War II. Exactly what I was talking about earlier. We'll talk about that when we get into the Pacific theater. The failed invasions were also demonstrated one of the Mongols' weaknesses, the inability to mount naval invasions successfully. Yep, they could do land stuff. They had horseback archery and shit down. They had land tactics down, but they just couldn't do the sea stuff. Couldn't do the boats. The Mongol invasions are an early example of gunpowder warfare outside of China. One of the first notable technological innovations during the war was the use of explosive hand-thrown bombs. The bombs are known in Chinese as thunder crash bombs and were fired from catapult. Oh, I guess those were the bigger ones, inflicting damage on soldiers. Oh, the Tetsuo, known by the Japanese, or iron bomb, is the hand-thrown bomb, not the thunder crash bombs. The thunder crash bombs are the big ones. The iron bombs are the little ones. Got it. An illustration of the bomb is depicted in Japanese Mongol invasion scrolls, but Thomas Conlan shown that the illustration of the projectiles added to the scrolls in the 18th century and should not be considered to be an eyewitness representation of their use. Interesting. However, archaeological discoveries since Conlan's statement have confirmed the existence of bombs in the Yuan invasion's arsenal. Multiple bombshells were discovered in an underwater shipwreck off the shore of Japan by the Kyushu Okinawa Society for Underwater Archaeology. X-rays by Japanese scientists of excavated shells showed that they contained gunpowder and were also packed with scrap iron or other things such as rocks. It's fucking crazy. The Yuan forces have also used cannons during the invasion. The Neon Kokujokushi, written about 1300, mentions Huotong fire tubes at the Battle of Tsushima in 1274, and the Second Coastal Assault led by Holton in 1281. The Hachiman Gudokun of 1360 mentions Iron Pow, which caused a flash of light and a loud noise when fired. The Taihiki mentions a weapon shaped like a bell that made a noise like a thunderclap and shot out thousands of iron balls. A fucking shotgun? Jeez. Holy shit. There's your first shotgun right there. I mean, probably not the first, but fucking one of them. One of the first shotguns. That's fucking wild. The Yumi longbow and naginata were the main weapons of samurai in this period. The Yumi is able to shoot while riding on horseback, with Japanese sword acting as a secondary weapon. As a result of the war, intellectuals in the Mongol Empire regarded Japanese swords as a threat. For example, Wang Yun, who served Kublai, and Zheng Zizhao, a surviving retainer of the Song dynasty, mentioned in their book that Japanese swords are long and extremely sharp. They argued that the combination of violent samurai and Japanese swords was a major threat. Oh my god. The Mongol invasions facilitated a change in designs of Japanese swords. The swordsmiths of the Shoshu school, represented by Masamune, studied tachi that were broken or bent in battle, developed new production methods, and created innovative tachi. They forged the blade using a combination of soft and hard steel to optimize the temperature and timing of the heating and cooling of the blade, resulting in a lighter but more robust and stable blade. They made the curve of the blade more gentle instead of bowed, lengthening the tip linearly, widened the width from the cutting edge to the opposite side of the blade, and thinned the cross-section to improve the penetration and cutting ability of the blade. Holy shit, the fucking legend. A Shusho school katana was originally a tachi formed by Masamune in the 14th century, but later it was cut from the root and converted into a katana. Oh, it wasn't a katana, it was a fucking odachi that was converted into a katana, as it was owned by Ishida Mitsunari. It was commonly called the Ishida Masamune. Important cultural property, Tokyo National Museum. Yep. A lot of these swords are still in the museum, at least the ones that weren't destroyed during the bombings of Tokyo. Like, man, that's probably the biggest L and W simultaneously that the United States ever took and got, right? They took a major L at the same time, got a major W. I mean, we won the war, but like shit, man, we bombed Tokyo and blew up all their historical items. Like so many samurai armor lost. Temples lost, scrolls lost, swords lost. Like, oh man, no, major L, bro, major fucking L. Holy shit. Yeah, disappointing. It's like, damn it, why couldn't we just fight them with swords? You know, like fucking everybody else back in the day. Just take it back to swords, then you actually have to have some kind of skill. I'm not saying shooting a gun doesn't require skill, but I mean, dang, if you drop a bomb that's big enough to wipe out an entire city block, I don't know how much skill is required in that other than being able to fly the plane, which actually isn't that hard. It's fly the plane, look down the fucking sights, and push the button at the right time. It's really not that hard. It's no different than playing a video game. next episode of Battle Tactics and War Strategies is gonna be the Boshin War. Okay, that's what we're gonna go over next time. We're going over the Boshin War, sometimes known as the Japanese Revolution or the Japanese Civil War. Was a civil war in Japan fought from 1868 to 1869 between the forces of the ruling Tokugawa shogunate and the coalition seeking to seize political power in the name of the imperial court. Getting closer to fucking World War II Pacific Theater. The war stemmed from a dissatisfaction among many nobles and young samurai with the shogunate's handling of foreigners following the opening of Japan during the prior decade. Increasing Western influence in the economy led to a decline similar to that of other Asian countries at the time. An alliance of Western samurai, particularly the domains of Choshu, Satsuma, and Tosa, and court officials secured control of the imperial court and influenced the young emperor Meiji Tokugawa Yoshinobu. The sitting shogun, realizing the futility of his situation, abdicated and handed over political power to the emperor. Yoshinobu had hoped that by doing this, the House of Tokugawa could be preserved and participate in future government. So that's what we're going to get into next time. That one should be a little bit of a longer episode than these last two have been. I know they've been shorter episodes. But this one, I kind of rushed through a little bit just because, I started like 15 minutes fucking late. But yeah, that being said, this one's going to be fucking probably 2 parts, and they're probably both going to be like an hour and a half. So be ready for a little bit longer. Because there's a lot of politics that go into this war. Right? So it's going to be equally battle tactics, but at the same time political tactics. Which might be a little bit interesting, for the wider audience. Might be a little bit more interesting than just focusing on specifically battles and, that kind of thing. We'll get into a little bit more of the politics, the political side of stuff, which actually is a lot easier to do with more recent wars and battles because, it's more well documented. So, I don't know. But that should be fun. As for now, this episode of Battle Tactics and War Strategies is concluded. Again, like every other night, I may be back, I may not, for some gaming. I might. It depends. We'll see. That being said, I hope you all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. No matter where you're at in the world, enjoy your time, because it could be limited. You never know. You might be out sailing in November, just random typhoon. You get kamikazed by nature, and it's game over. So enjoy your time, even though that possibility is extremely limited. It's okay. It's still a possibility, nonetheless. So don't leave it behind you. Enjoy that time. Enjoy it to the fullest, despite all situations. Alright, y'all. I'm out of here.
Just wish he knew. just wish he knew.